Welcome back to another episode. In this episode, if you're the type of person that's struggling to find work, if you're looking for work as a software engineer, product manager, I hope that we can give you some help and some guidance in that space. The world has changed more than ever. The hiring world has changed more than ever. And so there's some things that we've seen. History does repeat itself. And so in this video, we hope that we can give you some help and some guidance in that space. In 2015, when I met you, Mike, there was one thing I remember saying. You were talking to me about AI at the time was machine learning, right? And you were telling me all this stuff. And I remember asking you, I think we might've been in the Keys, in the Florida Keys or in Brooklyn at that coffee place that we used to try to go code from every now and then. And you were like, software is like, it's going to be able to, AI is like coming so far and whatever, which is like laughable because it's 10 years later. It's like, finally, it's like a thing now. Right. But I remember asking you, what happens when it can write its own code? Like what happens when it can do its own coding and you become, software engineers become redundant? Because at the time I was working at an agency in New York City, placing software engineers. And it was like, remember that one kid, Josh, absolutely incredible engineer. Yep. He like left the community, didn't even speak English, never went to high school, taught himself how to code on YouTube and changed his whole life, made six figures, which at the time was a whole lot of money living in New York as a kid in his 22 or whatever. And like couldn't even speak English 6 months prior. So
not a lot of money necessarily to live in New York, but a lot for a kid of that age. It
was a lot for him with roommates and whatever. And he did quite well. He was doing better than I was at the time. And I just remember thinking like, what am I doing so wrong? Like I thought going into kind of a sales role, like you kind of got to kill what you eat, you make your own, you create your own destiny. And I think that's relevant too, because I think a lot of sales, and you might not agree with me actually on this, but when I look at the most successful companies, taking out the fact that the political nature of everything now, Apple's political, Tesla's political in this current climate, but historically looking at them without the political glasses, they don't really have salespeople. Like Tesla was the most successful car company over the past 2 years, the Model Y specifically. They don't have salespeople at a dealership.
Their customers are their salespeople.
Yeah, they're referrals, whatever, but they're products. Alex Hormozy says, the product has to be good first. You're not going to get a referral if the product sucks. And so your marketing needs to be good, your product needs to be good. But I do think to some extent, in the same way that AI, you're going to talk about software engineering and how the software engineers aren't really going away, but the role has changed a lot. I think the same is similar with salespeople, certainly with product managers too, where it's like, it's not the same as it was. It's never going to go back to what it was. The slimy, greasy guy that, pushes you into the corner at the Bose store to make you buy like a 5-to-1 channel surround sound. Like that whole used car sales thing, trust is at an all-time low. Like I really do think people's trust is at an all-time low. And I think there's ample reasons for that. And so it's like these roles that have been around forever and they used to be cash cows, they are changing. And at least with respect to software, if I'm a young software engineer that's listening to this, what guidance and advice can you kind of give me to stay ahead of the curveball a little bit and not get stuck in the shuffle and making 50 grand a year in New York City and living just barely making ends meet? What can I do to avoid that, at least from a software engineering perspective?
Yeah, so I was going to say, I think it's difficult to avoid that altogether because no matter what people think, software engineering is very much still an apprentice type of trade. It's really no different than going to work under an electrician or a plumber. Yes, you can teach yourself a lot about electricity and plumbing work on YouTube, but until you start turning the water off and until you start screwing in things and playing around with the electrical box, you're not really doing it. And it's the same with software. And yeah, you can make go to front end masters and you can code a really cool demo app that's looks just like something that's in production. But until you start playing around with the actual production databases, pushing stuff up to the cloud, seeing deployments, seeing real data come through and actually pressure testing your platform, you're not really doing it. I think it's going to be very difficult my suggestion would be if you're starting off in software, unless your parents are willing to subsidize you a lot to live in New York, or you can split a bedroom, one bedroom, 2 ways these days, because Manhattan rent is a lot more expensive than when I was living there back in the 2010s. I think that you should really cut your teeth. You should try to keep your rent down extremely low, your cost of living really low, and you should basically offer yourself up for, garbage projects, like projects where they're gonna seem someone's looking for a deal typically, and you're not gonna get paid a lot. Sometimes you might not even get paid at all. Some of the best projects I learned on was when I was couch surfing in San Francisco in 2012, where some dude hired me to do like a Twitter. It was called Twitter at the time, which is now X. It was a car dealer, and it was at the time where you could basically get access to Twitter's Stream API, where you could literally tap into all of the tweets coming through the platform, and you could basically fish for anything that people were talking about, and then auto reply to them right away. They've obviously since banned that API. This is earlier on in that platform, and the guy wanted me to build an app where anybody talking about a specific car in a specific geocode, he would basically reply to them to try to get them to his car dealership was the premise of the app. So I built this thing for him. It worked. And then he said he was going to pay me like $1,000 and then just kind of never did. But it didn't really matter because I wasn't doing it for the money. I was doing it for the lesson. And I went into it being like, I don't really I'm not signing a contract or whatever. Like, I'm doing this for the lesson. And it was production data, and it did force me to learn. And also it taught me how to interact with an actual end user in terms of requirements gathering and things like that. And that stuff is something that's so valuable that you don't get when you just do YouTube or you're just replicating a project that you see. So you're going to have to do projects that are, they don't pay a lot. And so it's going to be hard to live in New York as a software engineer at that level. My suggestion is to cut your teeth when you have a lower cost of living, more in your mom's basement, your friend's basement, whoever's couch is going to offer you, and take as many projects as you can, as long as they're differing your skill set and things that you get to play with. Also try to do as many things with integrations as possible, because that is really what computers and systems are not isolated. They all are interacting with each other. And that's what really makes you a valuable software engineer. And so I would say keep doing those things. I think the hard part about AI right now is that even for like senior level engineers, VP of engineers, obviously it's a given that everyone's using AI right now. Just like the teachers are using it for their lesson plans, and our parents are now using it for itineraries on travel. Like, software engineers, don't get it twisted, they're all using it to generate code. They're using it to scaffold code. Now, you still need to know what you're doing when you bring the code in. Just because AI generates it doesn't mean it's going to be perfect. It's like someone looking at a recipe that AI is generating. Hey, make up this meal prep based on all the ingredients or whatever. You still have to look at the list of ingredients that they're presenting and gut check it. Sometimes it can be outrageous and it might not actually work. It hallucinates. It's not perfect. I think it's going to be very difficult for younger engineers to start off with that, because they're going to have a lot more scaffolding, but they're still going to have to press the play button on and deploy. And if they don't really know what's going on beneath the hood, I think that they're going to struggle a little bit. Now, AI is really good at explaining what's going on too. You just have to immerse yourself. It's truly like a language. You have to just immerse yourself, and you have to take on as many challenges as you possibly can and cut your teeth. There's no shortage for your first 10,000 hours in the industry. I think also try to get a summer internship where do it for a low cost of money if you can, but just try to work underneath someone that's willing to teach you as well. You're going to learn a lot more in 3 months under a senior engineer or a VP engineer who's willing to take you under your wing. That's really how I leveled up my skills very quickly early on in my career. They also teach you how to have confidence, and they teach you how to, back in the day it was, how do you Google this? Now it's like, how do you actually search for it on ChatGPT?
Which brings me to my side of it, that the solution that I would see is, I've always been huge on empathy and person-to-person competence. Like, since you've known me, that's been my thing. I think now more than ever, and I'm saying this tongue in cheek, but also quite literally, when everyone's gone to an Ivy League school, everyone has a degree, everyone has all the things, they have all the access to the information. the everyone has gone in that lane. And so like now the vacant lane is, what are the soft skills? And especially with COVID and especially with work from home, what's the person's drive like? What's their desire like? What's their honesty, humility, willingness to learn? Like, what is their resourcefulness? Those things are the biggest competitive advantage, and they transfer to any industry, right? So if you get out of software engineering, you want to be an entrepreneur, those things you're going to need them there. And so I look at it very similar to you with respect to, there's the technical acumen, and being good at all that is good, and like thinking about that in a little bit of a new way and a longer term kind of way. But then these soft skills, which are kind of interesting, if you look, to my understanding, the history of hard and soft skills was, I believe, during World War I or World War II, when they were training recruits, in the military on equipment, and like the soft skills were like anything that wasn't guns, tanks, Range Rovers, Jeeps, whatever. Like, and so the guys didn't like that, and so soft skills became the term. And so for a long time in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, soft skills were looked at as like a weak thing. It's like weak. And you look at the 70s and 80s, and it was really easy because the middle class, the cost of living was way lower relative to salaries, and so you could have a pretty good quality of life just having low soft skills, low technical acumen. Now I think it's like you need as much technical acumen as possible, and then like through the roof soft skills makes you so competitive, because a lot of these people, I mean, if you have TikTok, if you looked at Twitter, if you have YouTube Shorts, like you've seen, if you've gone out to a grocery store, you see how people are starting to interact with one another, and it's really, in many ways it's awesome, and in some ways it's devolved, and we've started to see each other as more like a number than a neighbor, a friend, a coworker. And so I think there's something to the soft skill side of things being a massive competitive advantage in this market, especially as things start to transform. I mean, looking at it, it's like there are so many industries ahead of us with full self-driving becoming more and more of a thing. It's so funny to me. Not funny, it's quite sad. When you look at trucking as an industry, for the last decade, they haven't had enough truckers. There's been a shortage, and they've been paying six-figure salaries for truckers, getting all these people, like looking for people, and it's such an unhealthy lifestyle. And in such a short period of time, they, even with how many people were still, especially through COVID and all the transportation logistics, there's still a shortage of truckers. It's like they're going to be replaced almost over what will feel like overnight. And that is going to continue to happen. And I think, being resilient, being resourceful, and having some of these having hobbies too, like having hobbies is really good. As like you've been working on your house and doing different things in your spare time. It's like they're really important because they show you your gifts, they show you your skills, they show you where maybe you should double down. And so I think there's something to the soft skills. Sorry for taking a long-winded way of saying that, but that's...
No, I agree. Soft skills are something that, even with our business right now with Insta here, we get people on the phone and they can have an amazing resume and pass all the questions, but they just might not be a good fit for the role just because they can't speak clearly. And like, that's a huge problem for anything that's dealing with people. You need, at the end of the day, we're all dealing with people. There's people behind all these systems. Like, the more that you can level up and the more you can deal with clients directly, the better you will be in any career that you do. You'll get advancement opportunities. You'll be able to rise the ranks of any organization. One other thing I'd like to point out too, if we have a little extra time, is from my perspective, I was always a back end and focused engineer. So you've got the front end, which is like when you go onto a website, that's what you see, right? If you go into e-commerce, you see, say Amazon, for example, you see there's a checkout, there's all those components, right? To be able to look at the listing, get details, reviews. And I was always more gravitated towards back end. I always kind of like muddled my way through CSS and HTML. The game has completely changed with being someone who's just really married to front end development, because that's what you love to do. You are going to have to broaden your skill set to the full stack, because I've created this entire platform with very little, I would say, front end, like hard coding, like stuff. And I've gotten it, it's good enough. There's users on it and no one's complained. Maybe I'm not soliciting enough feedback, But because I was a back-end focused engineer, it's been easier for me to do full stack. So if you're afraid of data and servers and APIs, like you have to broaden your skill set to not just do front end only, because it's easier for somebody with an AI chat tool to be able to scaffold what's a pretty decently good looking front end. And so it's going to come back down to, again, like, and we're just seeing websites in general change. Like when I was considering building Insta here, I wasn't even considering building all the pages that we now have, because I'm like, I could literally have our entire app be almost a chat interface where they're just the clients are saying what they need, and we're able to create a call script, create the assistant, all answer any questions that they have, just the same way that our assistant does for the people on the phone. That would really cut out a lot of overhead and a lot of pages on the app. And that's where I think you're seeing that already. Googling things is becoming somewhat irrelevant, because now that ChatGPT, Claude have direct integrations with web, you're going on and saying, what's the best, 1/4-inch compression thing I need to hook up my ice maker. They're now giving you listings to the retailers directly. They're crawling all the information from all these blog sites, but they're just giving you like the actual summary. So front end development's not going to be as much of a thing in the future. It's going to be more a data oriented, and again, getting back to APIs and integrations is really important.
It's really weird, because just thinking about that's such a crazy statement, right? Like since 1999, since we were kids, like Googling has been a thing. And it's really going to change SEO and marketing and like all these other anecdotal, like ancillary things. So it's a big thing. I want to leave people with this. This is something Myron always used to say, which is like, there is no coin with one side. And so people a lot of times like to just focus on what's the bad, but every coin comes with two sides. And so this is a new coin for us, and it will have good and it will have bad. And it's just like, you've got to be able to be aware of one and focus on the other, and move more towards what's going to be good about it, and hone your skills there. I think with that, we can end it here, unless there's anything else you want to add. Otherwise, we'll see our viewers in the next video.
Sounds good. Thanks, Perry.